Hey everybody, Texas Trucker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com. We are back. I probably invested 5 to 10 minutes trying to clean those up. They do look better, especially the green one. The green one actually cleaned up a little bit better than orange in my opinion. They were just delivered this way, absolutely filthy. The reason I'm emphatic on highlighting this, one, I expect more even for $5.99 when I buy something new. And two, you're eventually going to see these in like screwdriver shootouts, and I don't want somebody seeing the handle and being like, oh, that's not fair for Carlyle. You used a junk one that you've been using for years. No, that's how they were delivered. So I'm not sure. I might put the orange one into use and kind of have like a feel for it in advance and then keep the green one for testing. Not sure. The green did clean up better, and I mentioned that because if you're on the fence, if you love both colors, if you saw them and you think, man, that's my driver, $60 for this, 8-piece set's a killer deal. Green does seem to clean up a little easier, and I can assume it was like the same junk on them. But that aside, that's just a little filler material for you, because this is a standalone video for what is currently the last sort of like tool organization, tool storage product that we picked up from this Napa/Carlyle tool haul at the end of the year in 2021, and it is right behind me. It's gonna set you back $27.99 on the sale. They're sort of like end of year organization deal. It was $20.99. I thought, well, that's the time to buy it. The other selling point for me personally was the color scheme. I like it better than the default. Again, we'll just go ahead and throw this down. I'll always be up front and tell you, timestamps are down below, links are there too in the event that you love this and want to have it. Sometimes it's difficult to navigate Napa's website, so just use the link. As of me recording the video and editing it, it's going to be functional and live. That could change, but I make nothing off of it. It is there for your enjoyment. Part number will be LA-AT4, and again, $20.99 on sale. Typical price, $27.99. It is the locking air tool holder, right? So you can kind of see the setup here. You've got these little, kind of a rail with these little plastic boxes, and then you can see air tools kind of plugging in there. So let's take a look at what is said. Again, as best I know, this is going to be, the OEM of Mechanics Time Savers. This will be rebranded. You can find it in Carlyle. There's several other people that are going to sell it too. Mechanics Time Savers, I think if you go on their site or can find their product, it's usually like a red. Basically, where you see blue, it would be red. Carlyle Tools, again, the big selling point. If you're a fan of blue stuff like me, it's blue. So factor that in when you purchase. But the way they describe this is lock and unlock air tools with easy one-handed operation. It'll prevent dirt, grime, and contaminants from entering the tool while being stored. Easy slide locking holders along rail for necessary spacing. So if we flip her over, you get a better look at the product. Same description over there. That's just a better picture for you. And the best picture will actually be when we unbox this thing. So that's what I'm going to do. And we will, of course, in this one, be kind of getting our initial impressions here on the bench. And then we're going to go the extra mile. And we're going to populate this thing, hang it off the side of a box or a cart or something, and see how she does. So that's what it looks like. There's a really good look at the rail because everything is slid down here. Now, if you're sitting here and you're thinking like, man, they should have way more of these, I would agree with you. I don't know that I would say they need to populate the entire rail, because you got to think, like, if you're hanging down, let's just say like an inflator, right? You just want it handy and always ready to go, right by the doors. You can fill tires up. That's going to hang down vertically, and yeah, if you, for whatever reason, had like all sorts of different inflators, you could probably fill this whole thing. But think about what you're going to be hanging, right? So if you're sitting here and you're going to hang air ratchets and impacts, the ratchet is going to be a bit smaller, but again, picture it like taking up this much space. You could probably get another peg in. If you're hanging impacts, if you spin them away, I mean, you might get 3, maybe, I don't know, you've got like a 1/2 inch with a really long neck, and then you've got a 1/2 inch with a standard neck, and then you've got a 3/8. Maybe you could do that with a ratchet on the end or something else. Blowgun. Obviously, blowguns, if you orient them correctly, you could fill this up too. It's just going to kind of depend what you want. Obviously, let's just say that you love this, and when you've seen it like tested and everything, you want to go get one, but you're thinking like, man, you know, what do I do to set it up? Do it smart. So like if you've got two impacts, you've got like an extended one and then you've got like standard one, put them on a rail, you know, even if they take up the whole space, pull these two off and put them on another rail where you run like ratchets and inflators and that type of stuff, right? And then if you got on the flip side over there, you've got die grinders, set that up. So my advice with this would be to buy one, see how you like it, and then, you know, if you're sitting here and you're hanging something and you're like, man, if I had 2 more pegs, this would be great. Buy another one, put the pegs on it, and then use the one with 2 to put bigger items, right? Or try putting bigger items. I see something that concerns me instantly, and it's not very obvious. Obviously, you know, these are blue. They're a dark blue. They look really good, in my opinion. It looks like the setup is going to be, you know, sort of thing like your classic drop-in and hook mechanism. So we'll lift this up, and we'll slide in our fitting, and it's going to come back here and just rack itself, and then it'll be prevented from coming out and dropping down because this will sort of like lock it in place, prevent the exit. So that's going to pin that closer to the rail, which will be closer to a box. In terms of the top design, am I thinking they'll last a long time? Maybe not. I'm a little concerned about that, but what I'm the most concerned about is over here, okay? And you're thinking like, oh, sweet magnet, look at that, you know, it's going to go the whole length. Well, pretty much everything from Mechanics Time Savers has been great, minus, again, if they were the people behind those wrench racks, that was a pathetic magnet that's not at all capable of hanging vertically. This, I would say the same thing with, but there is an issue, okay? And this is going to impact a lot of you right off the bat and might completely can your purchase or make you have to say like, hey, I want to try this, but if it doesn't work, I want to be able to bring it back. Look at this construction here. So you come in and you've kind of got this like J channel, if you will, and you're thinking like, okay, well, what's the problem? Well, I mean, look, if we come in with our handy dandy ballast filled up, can't open NWS knife that's functioning as a straight edge in this case, do you see where it's going? It's going way up there. And why is it doing that? Because this exerts itself farther inward than we do with the magnet. Now that's good because of the way they've obviously designed this. They want the magnet to be flush, but they're expecting you to hang this off of a lip. And the reason that's going to be bad is, let's say that you want this on the side of your cart, but you don't want it draped over the lid, or you drape it over the lid, but then your lid doesn't shut and seal and can't be locked or something. It just killed a lot of the applications I had in mind for it, because it's clear to me that the magnet's there kind of as a convenience to keep it in place. I think it's actually, it feels heavy enough, the magnet. You know, I can tell, you know, it's aluminum construction, so the weight here is not from the plastic things. Those are like Frisbees. The magnet itself seems like it would hold, you know, probably a ratchet and 3 lightweight items, maybe a ratchet, a die grinder, and a blowgun. You know, probably not impacts. And I think they're aware of that, and so they've got this here. And that's going to keep it from falling down, and then this keeps it flush, and it makes it easier for you to, you know, move and replace air tools. The problem is, this is going to kill it for a lot of people, because kind of what I pictured with this, again, I'm in a 3x3 weld up here, right? So I've got 3x3 square tubing, 3-inch square tubing, for people that are real particular about that and say you don't need to list it twice because it's square. If you were going to put this flush against that square tubing, you've got to factor in this lip that extends farther, which means you would have to have it, if my index finger is the 3x3, right, tubing or whatever you've got for a wall, now that has to rest on top of it. So you can't like come in down here, you know, and have it mounted, because this is going to kick it out away from your flat solid metal surface. You could shave it off. That's kind of an unfortunate thing for you to have to do. Obviously, if you like mount it up high, you can do that, but then you have the potential for interference. The other thing, if you think of this with like pegboard, right, because let's give them credit here, they do have 2 mounting holes, so I mean you can drill and tap, put a nutsert in something metal, you can just run screws into a wall or wood if that's what you've got. you're going to need like a small spacer or a couple washers back here to account for that gap, unless you just slice the whole thing off. So I think what we're going to need to do is just go, before we even populate this thing, play around with it and see what it'll do. So I'm going to head over to the cart first, and then we'll go to the box, and we'll see what we think of it. Alright, so first test, we're over here. This is a little cheap US General 4-drawer, right? If I come in and we want to just test the strength of the magnet, that's not going to hold anything. Okay, I don't even know if that would hold. Maybe for blowguns and inflators, but no real tool. And if you think like, well, that's not even a good surface, well, I'll admit that. I'll give you that. If we look at this though, we've opened her up, and what this is going to be designed to do is tuck in there, and that works really well. And obviously here, I could hang whatever I wanted to. If I go find my 4 heaviest air tools and they actually fit in the space constraints, I think that would be fine. Weight-wise, because again, we have that integrated lift hook that's coming down and gripping this, like the black aluminum is here going down on the inside rail. Issue is going to be is then can you shut your lid? And I don't know. I'm thinking this is going to vary box to box. So this is a US General 4-drawer. That will actually clear, and I don't think there's any interference, so that is great news. What I'm going to do now is switch over to our big MasterTech card, but let me kind of show you how this looks just before we get too far away from it. This is all kind of in flux, so pay no attention to the junk in it, but see what I mean? This is just a rolled lip here. It looks just like this front ledge, but if you see here, you know, that creates a gap that gives it a lot of meat to hang on to. But see how it comes in and you're here and you've got a downturn with the bracket? That's good, and it's great that the lid fits. And then in terms of getting it off, not the easiest thing to do, but it is functional. If we come over here to our big one, again, apologies about freehanding this. So, same thing here. Now there is something that you have to factor in that's brought up by this side. Look at the handle. Okay, so this might be better suited for one side. We'll get measurements on this as well. Now the construction of this box is a little bit different, where that one, you can kind of see it like turns down. Let me fix that focus for you. See how it just folds over towards the outside? This one does not. This is like more of a fold over on the inside piece. I'm having to straddle some stuff over here, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Like this will drop down fine. Let's see if this will shut. The lid here looks to have a little bit more of a lip. I'm not going to break down the carts for you, but again, this is why I'm going to tell you this will vary box to box. And okay, that's already interfering. So, oh man, I think you could probably force that and lock it, but it's, I don't know that you can tell, but when we shut that, there's a gap because it's lifting this up. So, case in point, when I lift this, you're probably going to see the holder drop. Pay attention only to the mechanic time saver deal. See how it tilted there? That's not quite what I was hoping to see. So we're going to go over to the blue US General, where this will look a lot better aesthetically for you, and we'll see if it'll hook the lip of that top. Alright, so here we go. Safety glasses, by the way, are Nemesis. I like those. They seem to fog up the least out of stuff I've, you know, picked up at work. So we're still not even to the point of loading this thing, but again, aesthetically, this looks really good because the blue and the orange don't really complement one another. But what I was thinking when I bought this is like this would just be magnetic, right, and kind of stick, and it will, but it's not going to hold anything much, so you have to drop it down. And in the case of this US General, and this should apply to pretty much anything like it, 44 inch, 72 inch, 50 whatever, 26 inch, old Craftsman, everything should be real similar to this. I think it's going to tuck down and hold just fine. Obviously this looks a little better. We pull that off. This is a decent fit. Again, I'm giving up a little bit of space here, but what I'll do before we populate it, there's a lot of stuff here in the floor, so this not everyone's going to have this set up. Most of you are like in wood framed buildings and, you know, finished out metal buildings and stuff. But I'm going to, let's see if I can do this somehow without being too crazy. There's so much crud here that I'm having to work around. I'm going to tilt this up. Okay, and you're going to go right back there. Do you see my air pressure gauge? Right, that's my 3-inch square tubing. And I wanted this to be like flush on the wall. I didn't realize there was that J bracket, right? I wanted this to just be like this with a super strong magnet. And if I lean myself in here awkwardly, I don't know that you can tell, but that's, you know, it's not flush, it's tilted like this because of the J bracket on the back. I could cut that off pretty easy, you know, it might not be beautiful, but we could get rid of it. It's just going to be a situation where I don't think that magnet is strong enough to hold what I wanted it to hold. I'll be straight up honest with you, I did not buy that to hold blowguns and inflators. I was thinking more like, I'm glad I only bought one. I will test it before I condemn it, but I'm glad I got one because I was going to do this for die grinders. And then if I liked it, I was going to come in and buy another one for like impacts and ratchets. So what I can do to eliminate the forward tilt, which it has here, is just come up top and let that rest on the square tubing. But the problem I've got now is when we're on the box, right there, right, I've got this lip and the J hook is on the back side. And when it's on the back side, it's working like this, sort of a hooked finger, right? This that we just did together, I have it clear, okay, of the top, so it sits flush against the wall, but the J hook is going to come down and it doesn't have something to catch on, right? So I'm going to put some tools on that and we're just going to see what happens. So it's a good concept. I didn't realize there was the lip holder. I thought it was going to be just OP magnet holding everything in place, and I was really excited about it. The design that they went with, well, I can see why they did it, and it complements, you know, a magnet and allows them to use a weaker strength magnet. It's going to greatly limit where you can use this, especially if you're going to put any weight on it. So keep in mind, some things in air tools, pneumatic stuff, it's super light, even if it looks heavy. Like some of the composite stuff now is fairly lightweight, whereas I can go pull out old Ingersoll Rand and Chicago pneumatic stuff at work that will just one tool would pull that forward and cascade it to the ground. So I'm going to get a couple of tools here, stick them there, and then we'll just slowly move them around, because it's important that we see how they interact with the latch and hook mechanism. Alright, so if you notice the tool is shaking rather violently, or that's how I'm going to describe it, it's because I nearly face planted. And it's not because anything wrong with that. It actually, I'll give you kind of a quick view here. I'm working over that and that box, okay? The rest of what I'm covering is a surprise for a few seconds later. So I was pretty happy because, like, I've never actually put an air tool in this until those two went in there, and I was reaching over, you know, the box and the shop vac. I was like, you know, this is actually not that bad. I've never done this. I'm leaning forward awkwardly and I'm able to nest them pretty easy. You know, maybe this is gonna work. And so I'm trying to go with like most used things and keep it lightweight, you know. So I think I could come in and I could put 4 blowguns there. You know, if we had weird like 45 degree or rubber cups or something, you know, we'd stage it appropriately. And I think that would hold. But what I did to be nice, let me show you the surprise here, okay? I know the air hammer's heavy. There's even a bit in it. I know my little Husky 3/8 ratchet is heavy. And I thought my little composite cutoff, which that's probably my most used air tool, okay? I thought it was fairly light, and so, you know, compared to these two anyway, note I don't even have an impact out. So what I did is I had that in hand and I'm leaning over here and I'm like, yeah, I can even one hand this, you know, this is great, you know, and I set it up and then boom, instantly that thing drops. I'm able to catch it and pin it back. and I was able to keep that in one hand. But as soon as I put that little composite cutoff wheel in this slot, this thing comes down. Okay, so that is a no-go. That's already exceeded the weight for that. Now, to be totally fair, if I were to drill, which this is the problem for me that some of you aren't going to have, most of you aren't going to have, you know, like, that's square tubing, it's hollow inside, right? The other side, that's the panel, that's the outside exterior wall of the shop, okay? It's going to require like building a wall to be functional here, because I can't just drill into it. So if you have like a wood frame place and you've got plywood or whatever, you could screw into that, do whatever you need to do, and it's probably going to hold. However, you're still going to have it not sit flush, but sit forward until you cut that little J-hook off. So what I'm going to try to do against my better judgment, keeping the camera in, and keep in mind, this is, I use that die grinder a lot, it's 90 degree, but it's light. I realize it's a metal body, and you're thinking like, super heavy, you're being a loser. No, that's a very lightweight air tool, okay? So I'm going to one-hand this thing. And what I want to do here, which again, keep in mind, you got to think of the finish of your box or your cart. That's why I'm kind of delicately placing that. So with these in place, this now has the lip, right? We've got the J-hook actually hooking and catching and getting what it has to have, which is mechanical assistance. Okay, the magnet is lackluster. It's not going to work. I know they're capable, I believe, of having a way better magnet that would probably support this stuff. This is not going to cut the dice. I think, again, 2 blowguns, 2 inflators, it's going to be fine pretty much anywhere. But anytime you start putting weight, no. So what I'm going to try to do is bring this tripod out of that mess, stick this here, and we'll just sort of tilt down, zoom in, and what I want to do is try and showcase this. So I'm going to flip this out, try to keep myself out of the picture for you. And I'm grabbing, again, my little 3-inch cutoff wheel. This works really well. Like, my head is way, like, here's my hand, I'm way over here, right, off the frame. So I'm going to lift this up, and then, not even being able to see in very well, I just simply nest it, and there we go. I do want to highlight something I was afraid of. If you can position your air tool accordingly, like I've got a plastic guard here, which you can't really see. I've got a plastic guard here, which you can now see. This side is not a plastic guard, it's a cutoff wheel. So if this is turned just a little bit or you drop it in wrong, you're going to have that go against your painted or powder coated or, you know, vinyled up surface of your toolbox, which could be detrimental if you value the finish of it. Keep in mind, this has every advantage it can with this rail. It's doing the bulk of the work of the holding of the weight of the tools. The magnet is just kind of there as an auxiliary measure, in my opinion. So I tell you that because if this were to fail, or you didn't have that, or, you know, you just had one screw in like a handle slot that wasn't in use or something, if this were to come down, anything you had like this, and I'm sorry, I realize you could say, well, you need to take the disc off, you know, or if you had a grinder, you need to take the wheel off. No one's going to do that, okay? At that point in time, you go from mechanic's time saver to mechanic's time waster, all right? I never take that off unless I change it, okay? That stays populated. Same thing. Whatever bit I last used on the air hammer, which in this case we were busting spot welds, it stays in place, all right? So I want to now highlight something that's sort of strange, all right? If I set this down up here, let's just come in and fully populate real quick. This is my little 3/8 pneumatic ratchet. These actually weren't from a set. This is whenever I bought this in like the 2000s. This and the Impact kind of had that red rubber overmold, and then I bought that standalone. So I don't know that they have those anymore. Pretty sure they don't. So the air ratchet is probably heavier than the 3 of these combined. At least 2 of them. Take the 2 heaviest, and I would say that that's the weight. It sits out far enough away that it's only going to hit that if you like sloppily put it in. Obviously anything can swing back and hit it. But that's a functional setup, just a fairly stubby, let me spin this around so you can kind of see it, 90-degree die grinder. This one's kind of a joke, a little blowgun. But, if you were thinking like, hey, this is the box by the door, or this is where people come in, and we have to do like, a quick fix-a-flat type of deal, or just put air in tires. So many shops do that, and it's crazy. They just put air in people's tires to be nice, If this was like a setup like that, yeah, I mean, you want to hang blowguns and inflators, 90 degrees straight on, flexible, whatever, this would be cool. This would be very functional. For stuff like I was planning to do, I don't know that I want to run the risk of like scuffing the side of the box up, so I feel like I would prefer this mounted to a wall, and it might be a deal where I have to like take some angle iron and weld a peg to it, and have it go through, and then have this J-hook with a magnet going to the angle iron, because this doesn't really space this enough. Like when I start doing that, I mean, we're hitting the box the entire time, and I want to be able, like, I would like to put impacts on this, right? So case in point, if I lift up, which this part actually does work fairly well, I do want to stress here, if you look down the barrel here, typically I just have air tools sitting out like most people. And when you do that, when they said like this would protect crud from getting in the tool, you're like, no, if you have that thing sitting out, it gets filthy. Well, what they mean is it's going to protect the important end, which is these internals. So when this is covered up by this plastic, I'm sure something could drop in here and get in, but it's essentially like you're plugging the hole. So, I mean, that is actually a worthwhile selling point in my opinion. But what I want to do now is take things that are like awkward and heavy, like the impact, or in this case the air. This really is not that heavy, but it's heavier, right? So if I come in and we nest this guy, this is what you're going to be faced with, okay? So this sticks out well past, and somebody's going to run into that and spin it, and it's going to slap your box, right? So if you stick it this way, there's just so much bulk on the handle that you're already into the box. And then if you turn it this way, so you're away, from like your drawer or your walkway, well, then you've occluded this tool, right? So you're going to come and you're going to slap it back in your box to get to that tool. And I bring that up only because, like, I've already got the die grinder, offset towards the back. That's where I want to put this one. So you would want to utilize this and space the tools accordingly. And let's say that the air hammer is your most frequently used tool. You may not want it at the back out of the way. You might want it here. So this has a lot of potential, and I think in certain situations for certain people with certain tools, this would be like really, really good. But in terms of what I envisioned in my head when I ordered this, not so much. I don't think it's a total wash. I think it definitely has potential, but I feel like it could be greatly improved. So what I'm going to do is slap this shut so I can come over this way. I think I'm getting close to maxing this card out. My hands are really cold too, but this is sort of a look from this side so you can kind of see what I'm talking about better. Like if this is your #1 most used air tool, you're in the body shop, you're currently like ripping the floor out of your car, whatever it might be, you don't want this, right? You want it to be this way, but then you're up against your box, and so you're like, well, I want it to be this way. And then we just covered up our ratchet, which would in theory be our second most used tool. So then in order to get this populated properly, we would have to move this to the 4-peg. But then when we do that, even with the spacing and adjustment that we have here, which is kind of exhibited okay with this, the blowgun, we're not going to have maximum area to cover, right? So this would need to be at the back, and then I would need this to be second, and then at that point in time I have this peg all the way for the air hammer, and then I have this peg probably about here in front of the ratchet so it clears, and then the ratchet has to slide down, and then I don't even know if we have a peg left right here where we could put something as slim of a profile as a blowgun. So this one of those deals, again, I wish I could have like seen this in person. I probably still would have bought it to try it, but It's just, I was under the impression that it was all magnetic right there, and if you don't have this hook, there's no way it's holding that weight up. It's going to be like the wrench rack. It's a pretty cool product, and again, I think, depending on what you're doing with it, it could actually work really, really well. However, it could also be a huge disappointment. Again, that's all going to depend on what you're wanting to put on it and where you're wanting to put it. Your saving grace here is that, again, it's got slots. I'm not talking about this. This is what we would take off to access the rail to either pull one off. Like, let's say we wanted to run 2 impacts and a ratchet and we just needed this out of the way to put on another one. You would take that screw out and you would have access to add or subtract holders. But with this right here, you could run a bolt, you could run a screw, whatever. And when you do that, you can take away, again, the weight off of the magnet and sort of make this a little bit more functional for yourself. But that's about it, man. That's about all I can tell you right now. I'm personally kind of worried about it, hitting the boxes. If that's not a concern, if it's commercial or industrial, it's not your box, your shop foreman doesn't care. It's just like, man, this is great. The convenience of this, you're a genius, Larry. Go with it, pull the trigger, don't worry about it. If you care about the finish, like, I can't imagine people that spend 10 grand plus on a toolbox being okay with that. You're going to want to protect your finish, right? And are you going to want to take your beautiful favorite color, let's say blue in this case, and throw like some thick rubber adhesive mat so you don't have the box get torn up? I don't know, because then you're looking at a black rubber mat instead of the color you wanted. But what I want to do with this is put it up on a wall. Again, on the square tube, that ain't going to happen for me, at least with anything heavy. Blowguns and inflators, I think it might hold. I'm going to need to like build a wall, get a pegboard set up to really use this like I intended to. But for the time being, for me personally, I could literally like flip this to the other side of the cart. And when I do that, I could have a blowgun, I could have an inflator or two, and go to town that way, but that's not really what I bought it for. I kind of bought it for die grinders, and as I said, if I was then going to love it, I was going to switch over and we were going to have some other stuff. So anyway, I don't take bits and discs. Like if I had 3 other die grinders in here, which is what I plan to do, I'm not taking the sanding discs off, I'm not taking a wire wheel off of them, I'm not taking those funky abrasive things off. That's just a waste of my time. So what I want to do, I think this is almost out of time. I want to get measurements on this for you, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, we've got 1 minute and 30 seconds to end this, because that's all that's on the card. So if you come in end to end on this sucker, it's going to be 13 inches exactly. That includes the end caps. If you measure from the bracket, the J-hook down, it's roughly 2 inches. If you just do the device itself, it's pretty much at 1 inch. So the way this works, if you couldn't tell, and again, I'm fine with this part. You take obviously you're going to have it populated with a coupler, but it slides in like that. Obviously the top side is then protected. That part I'm fine with. It's the magnet is really, really weak on this. I've had some stuff, mechanics time savers, also all kinds of stuff that, like, even going through this thick rubber mat, it's like you have to work at it. This is just, it's nothing. It also, there's a spot on the box where it seems to have rubbed the finish off, which really sucks, because all we did is set it there and put 4 tools on it and take one out. So I don't know. I think this has a lot of potential. I think it can be improved big time. I'm going to leave it at that. LoneStarMopars.com is a website. You can find us Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all 3 at Lone Star Mopars. I hope you have yourself a fantastic weekend. Most importantly, if you have used this, what do you think of it? What are you doing with it? Pros, cons, let everyone know. Sorry for cutting it short, but I've got 7 seconds, so have a great weekend. I'll catch you back here in the next one.